went onto Instagram and I asked you guys if you had any questions about the competition or the weekend, and I have quite a few here, so let's start working through them. So the first question that I got was, what was your most stressful moment and what steps did you take to alleviate it? So my most stressful moment was not actually on show day. It was 3 days before. So ladies, if you've ever competed before, you know before you get your spray tan, you have to hair remove everything. And I had previously gotten a lower body wax, but for the upper body, I was going to use a hair removal cream. So Christine and I went to Walmart to try and find the one that I normally get. And they didn't have it. So I found the next best thing that was closest to and covered myself from like the hips up in hair removal cream. And about 10 minutes into it, I started getting really itchy and it started to burn, and I washed it off and showered it off, and my body was breaking out in this rash. I had like little red dots all over my body, and directly in the WBFF rules and judging criteria, your skin texture is part of your judging criteria. So I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I'm breaking out in this rash. Everyone is gonna notice it on stage. I got it really bad, like right behind the armpits, where it was like super swollen and super red. And that was Thursday, like early morning that I did it. And my registration dress was pink sequins. And the sequins went all the way around the armpit. So the entire evening when I was walking, that rash was rubbing up against the dress, and it was not comfortable at all. But thankfully I had packed some polysporin, and just from like Friday up until show day, I was rubbing polysporin all over the little dots. You couldn't tell with the tan on. So I was trying not to freak out once that rash did come, because there was nothing that I could do to control it. Was just hoping it would come down, and it did. It wasn't noticeable in the photos, but that was definitely my most stressful moment. What did you eat on the day? I stuck with all of the same foods that I was eating leading up to the show, except I got rid of anything that was higher volume. So I cut out blueberries entirely. I cut out cucumber entirely, because those are very low carbohydrates for the high volume. So for breakfast, I had oats with maple syrup with a side of chicken thighs. And then I had chicken and potatoes. And then I had just potatoes. The potatoes were coated in olive oil as well. So like my pre-show meal, it was like I was eating chicken nuggets and french fries, and it was the best thing. I was the happiest camper on show day. And then some maple syrup as well to get some quick carbs in closer to stepping on stage. And then in between my bikini fitness rounds and the fashion rounds, there was about an hour intermission, and I was exhausted. So I messaged Hattie being like, hey, I brought extra potatoes. I'm exhausted. I'm going to eat those. So my whole day leading up to when I stepped on stage was chicken thighs, oats in the morning, maple syrup, potatoes with olive oil, and that was it. I was eating about, I think I had 170 grams of carbs that day before I stepped on stage, and then like 30 grams of carbs in between the rounds, and then I went out for deep fried pickles and chicken wings afterwards. So that's what I ate. Anything you would have done differently leading up to the show? You smashed it, by the way. Thank you. Differently, there's things that could have been improved. My biggest thing like that I'm really going to lean into for this upcoming Worlds prep is going to be having a more consistent routine. So with me working at home and having a bit of a flexible schedule, I think I was a little too lenient with, oh, I'm gonna stay up until like midnight, 12:30, and then I'll sleep in till like 9:30, 10 o'clock sort of thing. And getting into a routine, I'm gonna go to bed at the same time, and I'm gonna wake up in the morning at the same time. And even if I stay up late, I'm going to wake up at the same day or at the same time in the morning so I can go to bed. Having that structure was something that I was a little too lenient in with this prep. And when we got into like peak week and driving, I was waking up at a more consistent time. My sleep was all over the place, as you saw in the past couple of videos. There were a couple of nights where I was only getting like 3.5 hours, but I got my 10 hours before show day. That is what matters. But my consistent go to bed and wake times are the thing that I really need to dial in on moving forward. First of all, you should have won. I disagree there. I completely 110% agree with my second place. My conditioning was not there for fitness, and I know what I need to improve on, but because I was doing both wellness and fitness as categories, and wellness, they don't want leanness. And in all honesty, going into the show, Hattie and I thought I was going to be wellness. And the judging criteria was like, no, you are not a wellness girl. And seeing the women that won wellness in their shape, genetically, my glutes are never going to be that big. I have trained essentially nothing but glutes and shoulders for the past 5 years, and they're still not big enough. So I am a fitness girl. I'm okay with that. I'm going to lean into my quads and my delts. I just essentially was not lean enough for fitness because I didn't want to come in too lean for wellness. So 2 categories kind of worked against me, but I know what I have to improve on there. And conditioning will no longer be an issue. So I appreciate that you should have won, but I shouldn't have won. And that's something that Paul Dillette said in our athletes meeting on Thursday was the best person on that day is going to win. Yes, there is a wow factor, but it is who represents the category the best. And I was second best, and I'm okay with that. What would you have done differently in your prep? Going to bed and waking up at the same time. That is the main thing. What were your macros during peak week? More information on macros throughout. So this was the highest that my macros were able to stay through the entire process. There were 2 weeks at about, I think it was 5 weeks out and 4 weeks out, where my calories got dropped down to about 1410, and I was eating about 100 grams of carbs per day on the low days. So on my leg days, I had, I think it was 140, 150 grams, but my progress started to stall and my body actually regressed and was holding on to fat and looked really stressed because I wasn't getting enough food. So peak week macros, they really varied from day to day based on how I was looking. And this is why checking in with your coach, if you have a coach and they are not checking in with how you look every single day on peak week, they're not the right coach for you. The lowest my carbs went, I had 1 day of 80 grams of carbohydrates where I was eating nothing but cucumber, and just to keep me really full because I wasn't used to that. And then on the other days, my carbs were 120 to 170 grams. So anywhere between like 1,600 and like high 1,800 calories in peak week, but leading into peak week, they were the same. So one of Hattie's main components is like, don't change stuff. Try and keep everything as similar as possible. The peak process and going into the show is as stressful as it needs to be on its own. You don't need to be manipulating a whole bunch of other things and trying things that you've never tried before just to like squeeze out a little bit of progress that you don't know if you're going to make. So, yeah, essentially from like 3 weeks out to the day before show day, my carbs were either 120 or 170. And then I had that 180 gram day just for a full like glycogen depletion. What got you interested in comps? I have always been a really competitive person. I was a competitive trampoline gymnast from age 10 to age 22. And then when I retired from that, I was really missing the competitive edge. And I tried softball, and I tried pole dancing, and I tried hoop, and I tried aerial silks, and like just nothing really filled that void until I got into the gym. And I really loved just going into the gym. Trampoline was a very individual sport. Resistance training and getting into the gym is an individual thing. And I followed a lot of the Hammer Fitness athletes. So did my first CPA/IFBB show in 2018 and didn't love the experience. I didn't like that I had to be a cookie cutter shape. So in 2019, I had been following Hattie Boydell, who has been my coach for almost a year now. And that is a dream come true. If I could go back to 2018 Lexi and be like, hey, you're going to work with Hattie and she is going to bring you to second place in your pro debut, I'd be like, no way. Yeah, so found competing with the WBFF in like late 2018, started my prep, turned pro in June 2019, and then the whole like pandemic COVID stuff happened. So this was my return to the stage. I've always been a competitive person. I like having a goal to work towards. I like winning. And even though I didn't win this one, like it took me 7 years to win national championships in trampoline gymnastics. I don't care how many years it takes me to get my crown. I love the process, and that's what matters most. What was your goal in placing in the competition? Are you happy with second place? Going into the show, I wanted to see which category I fit best in as a pro. In 2019, wellness was not a category, and I turned pro in fitness. And then during the COVID pandemic, the WBFF had released the wellness category, and they had this like virtual competition where it was submit a video from home. And I entered that in the wellness category because I only had 5 weeks to prep, and I was like, there's no way I'm getting fitness conditioned in 5 weeks. and I ended up winning the Wellness Virtual Pro Show. So going into this show, I was like, I don't know if I'm fitness, I don't know if I'm wellness. So my main goal going in, I would love to have won, but going in was get the feedback from the judges of where do I belong and where do I need to focus in for Worlds this year. So I'm competing in August again. I know that I am probably not going to win Worlds because I'm going to be stepping on stage with women who have been pros for 5 to 10 years now. And I have that work to put in. But again, when I show up at Worlds, I want to see where do I fit in the lineup? What do I have to grow? Should I take a year or two off to focus on building? So it's just right now, it's gathering information and it's loving the process. Now, when I got on stage and when I competed, I'm going to let you know, like right now, like full transparency, I was so sure I was winning. Like I was so sure I was going home with a crown. Just the way that the judges were looking at me and pointing at me and talking, and I was so confident in the way that I presented my physique. So when I got second in fitness, I was like, okay, like I'm really proud of myself. Veronica, her third pro show, we had an epic posing battle on stage, which like that is one of the highlights of my entire prep, was her and I just like posing it off, and I have so much respect for her and the work that she has put in, the improvements she has made to her physique, and it inspires me to do the same. But when I came second in fitness, I was like, they're giving me the crown in wellness. It's fine. Like I'll get second here. And then I'm pretty sure I ended up dead last in wellness because of my conditioning compared to all of the other women. I came in leaner. I had visible ab lines. I had quad glute separations, and my glutes were probably the smallest of all of the girls on stage. So wellness is not the category for me. Lesson learned. So what was my goal? Obviously going in, the goal is always to win, but it's bringing the best package. And I can confidently say, stepping on that stage, I was the best I have ever been. I am so proud of myself, and I'm really looking forward to not just this competitive season with the WBFF, but like the years to come. So there's a bunch of you that asked about the fashion aspect, the bikinis, the theme wear, the wings, the dresses, the cost of all of it. Where did I get it? Let me tell you that I have been planning my fashion for this for the last 3 years. I have been scrolling through Etsy stores and Instagram designer pages for years, and I have folders saved of all of the different outfits and bikinis and designs that I have envisioned, and I have enough like things in my head for the next like 10 WBFF shows. Doing 2 categories for this show, I really had to be mindful of cost. So for all of my bikinis, I took the second-hand route. So women had previously worn them on stage, and I had to figure out which ones were going to suit me, what colors, and then reach out to them, make sure that the measurements, it would fit my body properly. There were a couple of women that I messaged either on Facebook WBFF used suit groups. There were some WBFF bikini designers that I went to their tagged posts of other people that had tagged and scrolled like 3 to 4 years back. And that's actually how I found my blue fitness bikini. It wasn't posted for sale. I found this girl and her suit just through a tagged post on Instagram, sent her a DM and was like, oh my God, I love your suit. Can I buy it off of you? So that's how I got that one. It is from La Diva Designs originally, and it was worn by a woman. I think she was in the United Kingdom. So I bought that one off of her for about $600 US. Typically, brand new WBFF bikinis go for anywhere between like $1,800 and $2,500 because of the glitz and the glam. Competing is not a cheap thing, but buying a suit secondhand saves you some money. The second bikini that I got was the pink and silver bikini. It was originally designed by the WBFF official designer, Renata, but this was one that I purchased from a woman who had worn it the previous year, and she actually won her crown as pro bikini. I want to say it was either the Orlando or Bahamas show, but it had won a crown. It was beautifully designed, but it didn't come with the sleeve. And me in my head, knowing I was doing 2 categories, I didn't want to have really defined and capped shoulders for wellness, because that's actually something that they could mark you down on. So I reached out to Renata and said, hey, I bought this suit off of the pre-loved market, but I'm looking to get a sleeve made for it. And I'm looking for something long. Ideally, it's pink that has the accents with it. So the bikini that I bought on the used market was $700 US. And then the sleeve to have it custom made and then shipped to me was another about $300 US. So all in all, we're looking at about $1,000 for that bikini. So the second rounds were our fashion rounds, and in fitness, that is the theme wear round. So it can be Victoria's Secret fashion wings, it can be carnival related, something that is going to show off your physique, but has like wings or other accessories to it. Most of the time you're still wearing a bikini. So for that, I actually found these wings in, I want to say it was 2021. Remember that I was going through and like saving a whole bunch of Etsy stuff. So the wings that I bought were $375 from a designer in the Ukraine. So she had these beautiful wings for sale. I ordered them on Etsy and then shipped them. And then it was up to me to find a bikini that matched the silver wings. So I went onto the Facebook groups to look for some sort of silver suit that would really complement those wings. And I ended up finding a bikini in Australia that was made by GlamFit. So there's a lot of different WBFF designers out there. GlamFit is an Australian company, and this woman was in Australia, reached out to her. That one was $550 for the bikini. So the wings were $375 and the bikini was $550 for my Victoria's Secret angel-esque look. I love the angel aspect. Like, I have watched the Victoria's Secret fashion show since I was a kid. I always wanted to be one of those models. So the predominant future of my theme wear is always going to be, I'm going to have some sort of wings. It's just kind of the look and the vibe that I go for. And I'm really excited for my one for World. It's already designed in my head. I just have to send it to Renata, the official WBFF designer, and say, please bring this to life. And finally, we have my massive Fit Cinderella poofy princess ball gown. This was something that I found through an Instagram page in Thailand. So the Instagram page is called Costumes for Show. If I were to have had that custom made, I sent in all of my measurements. I had it custom made to the colors that I wanted, so I got to pick the teal. If I were to have that made here, you're looking at a couple $1,000s. Having it made in Thailand and shipped over, it cost me $580 US, and it is beautiful. My partner and I, just personal choice, we are never getting married, so I knew going into this, I was like, I want my poofy princess ball gown moment, but I don't want it to be white. So I fell in love with that dress. It's actually a corset and then a skirt, so it's a two-piece, but it looks like a dress. Fell in love with that the moment it arrived at my door, and just walked around the house being like, I'm a princess, this is awesome. And I'm trying to think of other uses for the dress before I sell it, because I'm going to sell all of the stuff that I wore with the WBFF and just in fashion in general. It's taboo to wear the same thing twice. I think I want to get a photo shoot or two out of that dress before I pass it on to its new home, just because I love it so much. I think the really important thing to bring up about the WBFF fashion aspect is you can be so creative and you can show off your personality. It can be who you want to be on stage. Sure, there's like a couple of guidelines, but they're very loose guidelines, and it's up to you to have your creative vision and just run with it. And that is why I chose the WBFF. I didn't want a triangle bikini that was like one color and that cookie cutter shape. I wanted to be able to like step on stage and express who I am as a person and bring all of these different visions to life. And I'm so excited for what is to come in the future, because I have so many ideas and I just have to like narrow it down to what is my next one for my next competition, and take it one show at a time. Strategies for when you're overwhelmed and how you pushed yourself through it. If you've seen any of my previous competition vlogs, you will notice that I cried a ton through prep. And that's how I got through the overwhelming moments. I processed them. I felt them. Bottling them up and being like, I'm fine, everything is fine, is not going to allow you to shift your nervous system to a different state. It's going to keep you in that state of feeling overwhelmed. So crying, journaling, meditation, phoning a friend, non-sleep deep rest. That was a really big one. I did non-sleep deep rest very frequently in the week leading up to my competition and in all of my weeks prep. And I've done it every single day post competition too, because what we do is hard. Whether you're stepping on a fitness stage or you are just trying to take care of your health day to day, life is overwhelming. So making sure that you have those solid foundations in terms of habits to take care of yourself and be able to step back and breathe and shift your nervous system in the overwhelmed times, reminding yourself overwhelm is temporary. And if you ride the wave and recognize that it is temporary and that overwhelming feeling will be over soon enough, and you have those tools and resources to help center yourself again, it's not as daunting and it's not as overwhelming as feeling overwhelmed is, if that makes sense. Oh, another really helpful tool that I've talked about previously that I learned from Andrew Huberman about a year ago now is the physiological sigh. So a double nose inhale, long mouth exhale. This can be done anywhere at any time. I did it in the elevators as I was going from like the hotel to the venue. I did it when I was standing backstage before I was going to step on. Ideally closing your eyes, but you don't have to, but putting one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach and going, just doing a couple of rounds of that from a physiological standpoint is like programmed in us biologically to help calm us down. So that is a tool that any of us can use at any point. And I pulled the physiological sigh out like hundreds of times through prep. It is a staple that I do to this day, and I recommend to all of the ladies that I work with. How many hours do you train, including cardio? So for the entire prep, from a resistance training standpoint, I was doing 5 days a week, 3 lower body and 2 upper body. And those would take me, with my mobility warm up at the start, anywhere between an hour and 15 minutes to complete. And then in terms of cardio, my cardio stayed the same, I want to say for at least 2 months of prep. So at about, I think it was 8 weeks out, my cardio got up to 300 Whoop calories per day, every single day. And it was up to me to choose the type of cardio that I was going to do, choose the intensity based on how I was feeling that day. So some days that 300 calories of cardio took me 30 minutes on the stairs because I was busting my butt. And then other days I had to split it up into 2 sessions where I was doing like 45 minutes here and like 40 minutes there. There were days where it took me almost an hour and a half to complete that same 300 calorie goal because I was fatigued, I had a poor night's sleep, I had a poor recovery, whatever it was. So it really varied. Cardio was anywhere between 30 to 90 minutes, but most days it took me about 45, 50 minutes to complete. Plus, like I said, the resistance training, which was 5 days a week of about an hour 15. So on some days I was doing 2.5 hours of exercise. Plus I had my 10,000 to 12,000 steps to get in, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours of walking, but I have dogs for that. The final question here, which really made me pause and think about it, was what was something that surprised you by competing pro? I honestly think it was the backstage camaraderie between all of the ladies. Like, I've heard through the grapevine that the WBFF backstage, everyone is so supportive and so encouraging, but everyone backstage, whether they were pro or amateur, was so incredibly nice and welcoming and supportive. So there was the one round in the competition between my theme wear with the wings and my evening gown where like I had to run backstage and strip off my theme wear and throw on my evening gown and then had to line up again. And I forgot to take my number off of my theme wear and put it on me so I could step on stage for my evening gown. And this dress was like really big and I had already fit through a couple of doors, and going back just sounded like a pain in the butt. So I turned to this random girl who I had never really spoken to, and I was like, can you do me the biggest favor? If you go backstage to the far back corner on the right, there's a button there, it's 848. If you can just grab it and bring it back, I would appreciate it so much. And like, she did it without a second thought. That is the environment of the WBFF, is whatever you need. If you need help putting on your theme wear, if your bikini looks a little bit crooked, like, these women are so supportive. Yes, we're all competing for the title, but we were having like dance parties backstage to the music. We were helping each other out however we could. One of the girls that was near me, her theme wear broke on stage, and it made my heart hurt that these beautiful wings, she got to the end of the runway and they just snapped. So when she came back, I was like trying to help and adjust so that she could continue on with the round on stage. So just like the amount of support and fun that we had, not just on stage, but backstage, was something that was really surprising and something that I am going to appreciate about the WBFF as a federation for all of my years of competing to come. I know now I am a fitness pro, which means we got to grow the shoulders, we got to grow the abs, we got to grow the glutes. And I am looking forward to all of the work that I'm going to put in these next 4 months and these next years ahead. But I'm going to enjoy every part of it. A lot of you have asked, am I going to keep up with these weekly videos? Absolutely. They are part of my Tuesday night routine to sit down and edit. So starting this upcoming week on Wednesdays, we are getting back into the weekly prep updates towards Worlds. I'll share the highs and the lows of post-show while also trying to compete in another show, and we'll see after August if I keep them up as well. But no, for the next 17 weeks you'll be getting a dose of me every single week. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for your interest in my life. Like, it blows my mind that there are people from around the world who have never met me before that are cheering me on and supporting my dreams and my goals. I hope that I inspire you in some way. If you have any questions that I didn't cover in this video, drop them in the comments and I will answer them in a future video.